All right, let's get to it here. 215-592-94.
French was his second language, and he was branded an outcast because he spoke it with an Italian accent.
There you go. All right, so we have a draft tomorrow. Yeah. It has garnered very little attention in recent days. It has been a strange draft cycle, if you will. I mean, it's been a lot of offensive linemen, 3 of whom, by the way, have seemingly the same name, like close to the same name. Cornerback obviously has been a thing, but the Eagles picking as of now 22, a little lower in the draft, a little harder, I think, for some people to wrap their minds around some of the players that deep. But we're now starting, John, to get the rumors, and really, it's no surprise that there's a great chance the Eagles will move up in this draft. That's what they typically do. That's what they did for Devontae Smith. That's what they did for Fletcher Cox. That's what they did, obviously, for last year with Jalen Carter. I mean, that's what they did with Jordan Davis. That's what they do. Now, as we kind of get ready here for a day and a half from now, tomorrow night, the NFL draft, we'll ask all of you at 215-592-9494. Just lay it on the table. What do you want to see Howie Roseman do? You can talk about a specific player. You can talk about a specific position. You can talk about a specific side of the ball. Like, what do you want to see Howie Roseman accomplish tomorrow night? And obviously, if you want to get into the second and third and fourth and fifth rounds thereafter, that's all good too. But the first round, John, we know drives the engine of pre-draft conversation. John Ritchie, what do you want to see Howie Roseman do?
This sounds strange. I guess it's best player available, but for me, it's specific players.
Yep.
I like this Terrion Arnold, who's a cornerback from Alabama. I also like Quinion Mitchell, who's a cornerback from Toledo. The problem is, and you know that I like J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham is an offensive tackle who has that versatility where he could play inside at guard and then move outside to tackle, and he's huge and he's talented, and he's just probably a little too talented to be taken at number 22.
Yep.
So we would have to move up if we're going to pick J.C. Latham. I like the idea of trading up. I like what Howie does, where he finds the guy that we covet the most, that fits us the best, and then he throws a couple extra picks in to make sure we get the right guy that fits us perfectly. I totally support that approach. I would love if we did that with J.C. Latham. I would love if we did that with Terrion Arnold or Quinion Mitchell. And the word on the street right now, depending where you look, is that the Eagles are hot on Quinion Mitchell. And the issue is he's from Toledo, so you try to look at the tape on him. Holy cow, it looks like sometimes it's someone's phone from the back corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
And so it is hard it's not apples to apples when you look at his film and compare it to Terrion Arnold. But, doing that process, it's been fascinating. Both guys really talented, so young and explosive, and so much promise there. I like the idea of trading up for one of 3 guys. And I think it's likely that we will be within reach of these guys. So it's I feel it's almost, I don't want to say stress-free first round, but I do think these players will be available. One of these players, or maybe a couple,
but
will
not
be,
at 22.
Right. With the right trades packaged and attached, we can go up and get these guys.
Are you saying, John,
these are not number 22 type guys?
That's right. Are you saying you'd be disappointed if they don't trade up?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you don't like
I want to trade up. I have my heart set on these guys because these are difference-making guys. Terrion Arnold, I think he can bring the rest of the team along with him. Taking it to the next level, when you listen to him talk about football, I love that part. And that's rare. So this is one of those guys, I'm sure, that their scouting department, they get to that point where they know these guys inside and out. They know their character. Terrion Arnold is a guy who will make your entire DB room better. That's why you trade up for him.
Well, look, I'm curious where everyone stands at 215-592-9494. I mean, I've been, what do you want to see Howie do? I've been struck this entire draft cycle, and I'm going back about a month and a half now since we, sort of started this back in March. And it's like every time John, almost every time, let's say, John talks about a player he likes, it's a player that is not expected to be there at 22. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of the matter. So, the 22.
But they're close. These guys are
close.
close.
They're close, but they're not generally considered there at 22, generally speaking.
Some of these guys started out in that vicinity, and then they've been sliding upward.
Well, you know why? Because other people watch the film, too. I mean, so what do you want to see the Eagles do? 215-592-9494. Seltzer, where are you? We got about, I don't know, about 34 hours to this NFL draft, about 38 hours till the Eagles make the pick late tomorrow night or earlier. What do you want to see them do?
So
earlier.
My overarching
earlier.
My overarching thing is defense. They could use all 10 picks they have in this draft on defense, and I will not complain. Like, I need defensive players. But the more I get closer and the more I think about it, and the more we talk about trading up, which it feels like we're going to have to get one of the guys we really want. Like, I want a cornerback. I'm trading for a player. Remember the A.J. Brown trade came out of nowhere? We were not talking at all about A.J. Brown. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, look at that. A receiver, let's go. Like, do that. Whether I know we've talked about Patrick Surtain, but maybe it's a cornerback we haven't talked about. Maybe it's a Marshawn Lattimore or someone like that. But I'm trading 22. I'm willing to even throw in a second-round pick. If I can go get a corner who's going to help me right now and can step in and on the other side of Slay, and also Slay, who knows how long he's got.
Yep.
Like, Patrick Surtain's 24 years old. He's as old as some of these kids being drafted. Like, give up premium assets. Go get because I don't trust how he draft cornerbacks. Like, he's never done it. Like, Sidney Jones is the only kind of high cornerback to take it.
James, I got to tell you,
go get a player.
I'm glad that I didn't go into my wise ass mode, because when you said go get a player, I was going to say as opposed to what, a dog. And then I realized when you said Patrick Surtain, what you meant. You mean a
player with a capital P, a player.
Well, no, but you mean an established NFL player.
That's what I mean.
You mean a veteran player, even if he's on the younger side.
Yep.
You mean someone who's played in the NFL. Go make a trade for an active NFL player, not
go
one of the.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Go do A.J. Brown on the defense. Go get me the A.J. Brown cornerback. That trade is what I want.
You know who did that for years? The Rams.
Yeah.
The Rams didn't make a first-round draft pick for like 7 or 8 years, whatever it's been. They've traded all their first-round. I think maybe they're on the clock this year. I think maybe for the first time in years. I forget exactly what it is. Washington used to do that in the 80s and 90s. That was their strategy. They would always trade their first-round pick.
The Rams did it. The Rams did this strategy, and it worked.
The Rams did win a Super Bowl and had sustained excellence for a good 5-6 years. They had that one down year.
And still made the playoffs last year. Still a competitive team now.
No, I know. So, all right. So there's that theory also, 215-592-9494. You know, my mindset, it's similar to James, although without the focus so much on the active NFL player, which I'm certainly not going to say I'm opposed to. But my main mindset, John, is the defensive side of the football. I'll just put it right on out there. I'll be very disappointed if the Eagles take an offensive lineman in the first round. And I know, like, I want to
steel yourself. Then you got some good chances that they're going to be taking an offensive lineman.
I know. I also know, you know, the whole thing's kind of phony baloney, prediction wise and feeling wise beforehand. When like in the end you don't know the outcome, and like if you draft Jason Kelce in the first round, no one's going to complain 9 years from now. You know, like ultimately it really does come down to how good is the player. But I mean that is the main thing, and that's where best player available or projection of best career, right? That's when people say best player available, normally it means who's going to have the best career. And that ultimately, you know, like it does matter most. But I also know what also matters is what do I have right now? What do I need right now? And who helps me fill that void the most right now? I mean, that is part of the equation. And maybe teams overdo it. I think the Eagles overdid it when they drafted Marcus Smith back in 2014. They had an obvious deficiency at edge rusher. I think we all kind of felt in the moment it was a reach. I mean, you could tell the ESPN panel that night was very underwhelmed. City of Philadelphia was very confused. People hadn't even talked about Marcus Smith. By the way, one of the rare times when the Eagles traded down in a draft, which is part of why people were so confused, because let's be real, we never really talk about who's supposed to go 5 to 10 picks after the Eagles. I mean, that's not the way we're wired as a fan base. So that one was confusing. I would not expect a trade down. I would expect a lot of defense. I sure hope for it. Look, you guys know my deal. Right from the outset of this offseason, when that Tampa Bay game was over and the dust settled on that season, 3 or 4 days later, I was very clear. I thought and still think it's a 2-year defensive rebuild. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can turn it around quickly. Obviously, they made some strides with CJ, GJ. I mean, I tend to think Huff for Reddick is a step back, at least in the short term.
Well, that's why you do what James proposed. I totally agree with him. You get an established player.
You can.
And you speed up that rebuild.
You can. I mean, you also, though, it's not as simple as I just get a better player, because what you also have typically is a guy that makes more money, a guy that's older. I mean, like take Hassan Reddick, and that wasn't a trade, but for what it's worth, as great as it was, it only lasted 2 years. It's really nice when you draft.
That's the trap that you fall into.
Well, that's the thing.
We talked about the Rams earlier.
You know what I'm saying?
The Rams are.
Right.
But that's if you sign Saquon Barkley, right? Like, isn't that like 2-3 years, right? 2-3 years with Saquon here. Like, what's the point of signing Saquon Barkley if you're not going for it in this moment?
No,
right?
But are they?
But yes, because they signed Saquon Barkley. I agree. I understand your point, and I understand
James.
what I get it. But then why would you sign Saquon Barkley? It's a running back. What's the point of it if you're not trying to win right now with Saquon Barkley? It makes no sense otherwise.
All right. Well, look, we'll see where everyone stands on the whole thing. What do you think they will do? What do you think they should do? The positions, the players. We'll go through a lot of the players today. We'll detail a lot of them as we get closer to this draft. Obviously, the Sixers thing totally on the table as well. Our phone lines were jammed yesterday. If you want to look back and react to Game 2, please do. We will also start looking ahead to Game 3 as well. But and maybe more than anything with the Sixers, what do you make of Joel about a half an hour after Game 2 declaring that the Sixers would win the series? That declaration by him, what do you make of it? 215-592-9494. All right, we'll get to the Phils as well. Joe DeCamera and John Ritchie. It's obviously going to be a busy Wednesday here on 94 WIP.